The universe remembers everything, even those it tries to forget. In the forgotten edges of the outer terminus, where stars burn dim and hope dies slow, something ancient stirred. Captain Dren Volkar had seen many things in his 30 years of scavenging the void, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. His vessel, the Meridian Scythe, drifted through a debris field that stretched beyond visual range. Volkar was a Krelthian, his gray skin marked with the scars of 100 close calls, his 3 eyes constantly scanning for opportunity. Behind him stood his first officer, Tessa Novak, a human who had abandoned her species decades ago for the lucrative life of salvage operations. "Boss, these readings don't make sense," Tessa said, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. "I'm detecting power signatures, but they're so faint they shouldn't exist at all." Volkar moved beside her, studying the data. What he saw made his primary heart skip a beat. Ships, thousands of them, arranged in perfect military formation, floating silent in the black. "Run identification," he ordered. The computer hummed for several seconds before responding. "Terran Colonial Defense Force. Vessel classification. Pre-unification. Era. Estimated age, 312 years. Tessa's face went pale. "That's impossible." The TCDF was dissolved when Earth joined the Galactic Coalition. "These ships should have been scrapped centuries ago." "Should have been," Volkar agreed, his voice thick with greed. "But clearly weren't. Do you know what human military tech from that era is worth? Even the scrap metal alone would set us up for life." He turned to his communications officer, a young Sorelian named Plix. "Send word to the Salvage Guild. Tell them we've found something big. Really big." "Already on it, Captain," Plix chirped, his tentacles moving rapidly across his console. The Meridian Scythe glided deeper into the fleet. Volkar counted the vessels as they passed. Cruisers, destroyers, frigates, carriers, so massive they blocked out the stars behind them. Every single one dark, lifeless, covered in the dust of centuries. "Take us to that one." Volkar pointed to a colossal dreadnought that dwarfed everything around it. Across its scarred hull, faded letters spelled out a name that sent chills down Tessa's spine. "Retribution's Dawn." "Captain, I really think we should reconsider," Tessa said quietly. "There are stories about the TCDF fleet, about what happened to them." "Stories," Volkar scoffed. "Myths told by species who wanted to forget their guilt. The Coalition abandoned these humans in deep space and left them to die. There's nothing here but ghosts and profit." 20 minutes later, Volkar led a boarding team of 6 through the airlock and into the bowels of the Retribution's Dawn. Their suit lights cut through absolute darkness. The air was breathable but cold, so cold their breath misted despite their environmental suits. The corridors were pristine. Not abandoned, not destroyed, preserved, as if the crew had simply stepped away for a moment and would return any second. Tessa noticed the details that Volkar missed in his excitement. Names stenciled on doorframes. Children's drawings taped to walls. A stuffed animal sitting on a bench, waiting for a child who would never return. This wasn't a warship anymore. It had become something else. A home. A refuge. "The main reactor core should be 5 decks down," Volkar said, checking his scanner. "That's where the real treasure is. Power cells, fusion cores, weapons systems." They descended through the ship, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Each level revealed more evidence of long-term habitation. Hydroponics bays filled with dead plants. Schoolrooms with lessons still written on boards. Medical facilities with empty beds lined up in rows. "How many people lived on this ship?" Plix whispered. "Thousands," Tessa answered, her voice heavy. "Families. Entire communities. They weren't just soldiers. They were refugees." Volkar stopped at a massive blast door marked Command Core, authorized personnel only. He attached a bypass device to the control panel. Whatever they were, they're gone now. And we're about to get very rich. The door hissed open. Beyond it lay the ship's central computer core, a cathedral of technology that hummed with barely contained power. Volkar approached the main terminal, his 3 eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Let's see what secrets you're hiding," he muttered, connecting his data harvester to the ancient human systems. The moment the connection established, everything changed. Lights blazed to life throughout the core. Emergency klaxons wailed. The floor beneath them vibrated as systems long dormant roared back to consciousness. "What did you do?" Tessa shouted over the noise. "Nothing. I just accessed the database." Volkar frantically tried to disconnect his device, but it was locked in place. Data streaming in both directions. Then they heard it. A voice, crisp and clear, echoing through the ship's communication system. A woman's voice, authoritative and cold as the void itself. "This is Admiral Rebecca Stone of the Terran Colonial Defense Force. Unauthorized boarding detected. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." Tessa grabbed Volkar's arm. "We need to leave, now." They ran. Behind them, throughout the ship, they heard the sounds of awakening. Doors sliding open. Systems powering up. And footsteps. Hundreds of footsteps moving with military precision through corridors that had been silent for 3 centuries. The boarding team burst through a junction and stopped dead. Blocking their path stood a line of humans. 20 of them, wearing uniforms that were patched and repaired countless times, but still bore the insignia of the TCDF. Their faces were gaunt, their skin pale from centuries of recycled light, but their eyes burned with an intensity that froze Volkar's blood. The human in front, a woman with captain's bars on her collar, raised a hand. She didn't point a weapon. She didn't need to. "You woke us," she said simply. "After all this time, someone finally found us." Her smile was not friendly. It was the smile of someone who had waited 300 years for this moment. Behind her, more humans emerged from side passages. Dozens. Hundreds. All armed. All watching. "Run," Tessa whispered to Volkar. They ran. The humans didn't chase. They simply watched, their expressions unreadable, as the salvage team fled back to their ship. As the Meridian scythe pulled away, Volkar looked back at the fleet. Lights were coming on. Ship after ship, row after row, the entire fleet was waking up. Thousands of vessels that had floated dead for centuries were powering their weapons, charging their engines, preparing for something. "Get us to the nearest coalition outpost," Volkar ordered, his voice shaking. "Maximum speed. And send a priority message to Galactic Command." "What should I tell them?" Plix asked. Volkar stared at the awakening armada, watching as it organized itself with terrifying efficiency. "Tell them the humans are back. And they remember everything." The Coalition Council chamber on Nexus Prime had not seen such chaos in 200 years. Representatives from 47 species shouted over each other, their translators creating a cacophony of panic that echoed off the crystalline walls. At the center of it all stood Chancellor Mervix Thorn, a Valorian whose orange scales had dulled with age and stress. "Order!" Thorn's voice boomed through the amplifiers. "I will have order in this chamber." The noise subsided slowly. Thorn activated the central holographic display, and the room fell completely silent. Floating above them was an image that chilled every being present. The human fleet, fully powered, moving through space in perfect formation. "This footage was captured 6 hours ago by a commercial salvage vessel," Thorn explained. "Our initial analysis suggests this is the lost TCDF Armada. The same fleet we..." The same fleet that vanished during the Unification Wars. Vanished, scoffed Ambassador Quellix, insectoid Vexthari, whose mandibles clicked with contempt. Is that what we're calling it now? We cut their supply lines and left them in the outer terminus to die. We all voted for it. A murmur of uncomfortable agreement rippled through the chamber. Thorn raised his hands for silence again. The question is not what we did 3 centuries ago. The question is what we do now. Our long-range scanners indicate the fleet consists of approximately 41,000 vessels, all armed, all operational, and all moving toward Coalition space. How is that possible? Demanded Representative Cross, a gelatinous morphid who shimmered with anxiety. Humans only live 70, maybe 80 years. Everyone aboard those ships should be long dead. Cryogenic suspension, answered Dr. Henrik Moss, the only human in the chamber and the Coalition's chief xenotechnology expert. All eyes turned to him. The TCDF developed advanced cryosleep technology near the end of the Unification Wars. They must have put their entire population into stasis, waking periodically to maintain the ships. For 300 years? Quellix's voice dripped with disbelief. Henrik nodded slowly, his weathered face grave. My species can be remarkably patient when we have something to live for, or someone to survive against. This is your fault, snarled Quellix, pointing an appendage at Henrik. Your people refused to accept integration into the Coalition. They wanted independence, their own systems, their own government. They were a threat to galactic unity. Henrik's jaw tightened. My people wanted the same rights every other species in this Coalition enjoys. Instead, you labeled us extremists, cut off our colonies, and left 60 million humans to die in deep space. Men, women, children. And now they're coming back, Thorn interrupted before the argument could escalate. We've attempted communication on every known frequency. No response. They're ignoring our hails. Then we meet them with force, Quellix declared. Mobilize the Coalition Defense Fleet. We outnumber them 10 to 1. With respect, Ambassador, Henrik said quietly, you're making the same mistake you made 300 years ago. You're underestimating human resolve. Inside the command deck of Retribution's dawn, Admiral Rebecca Stone stood before the massive viewport, watching the stars stream past. She was 68 years old chronologically, but the cryosleep had preserved her at 35. Her crew had aged in shifts, some waking to maintain the ships while others slept, creating a complex web of generations who had known nothing. But this fleet, this purpose, this burning need for justice. Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from Coalition Command, reported Lieutenant Ezra Hunt, her communications officer. He was young, born on this ship 40 years into their exile, raised on stories of the betrayal. Ignore it, Rebecca said without turning. They're threatening military action if we don't respond. Now Rebecca turned, and Hunt saw the cold fire in her eyes that had kept this fleet together through 3 centuries of darkness. Let them threaten. We've been dying slowly for 300 years while they forgot we existed. A quick death in battle would be a mercy. Her tactical officer, Commander James Okonkwo, approached with a data tablet. Admiral, our scouts report Coalition fleet movements. They're massing at the threshold gate, the choke point to inner Coalition space. Approximately 400,000 vessels. Rebecca studied the tactical display. The Coalition had numbers, but their forces were spread across 1,000 systems, maintaining peace and protecting trade routes. They weren't prepared for total war. Humanity had nothing else to prepare for. How long until we reach the threshold? She asked. 18 hours at current speed. And our people, are they ready? Okonkwo's expression softened slightly. They've been ready for 300 years, Admiral. Every person on every ship knows why we're here. The children know. The grandchildren know. We've passed down every name of every person we lost, every colony that was abandoned, every promise that was broken. Rebecca nodded. She walked through the command deck, observing her crew. These weren't just soldiers anymore. They were the descendants of survivors, raised on recycled air and rationed hope, trained from birth for the day they would return home. "Open a fleet-wide channel," she ordered. Hunt worked his console. "Channel open, Admiral. All ships receiving." Rebecca took a breath, choosing her words carefully. This would be the first message many of the fleet had heard from her in years. "This is Admiral Stone. In 18 hours, we reach the threshold gate. Beyond it lies the coalition that left us to die, that erased us from their histories, that told themselves we were acceptable losses in the name of galactic unity. They're waiting for us with overwhelming force. They expect us to surrender or die. They don't understand what they're facing." She paused, looking out at the fleet visible through the viewport, thousands of ships moving as one organism. "We are not the military force they abandoned. We are the children of abandonment. We are families forged in darkness. We are a civilization that survived when survival was impossible. We carry the memories of 60 million souls who deserved better. We are humanity's ghost, returned from the void to remind the galaxy what happens when you forget your sins." Throughout the fleet, in mess halls and weapon bays, in hydroponics gardens and schoolrooms, humans stopped what they were doing and listened. They will ask us to forgive. They will offer us compensation, territory, apologies. They will try to make us forget. But we are the people who never forgot. And tomorrow, we remind them why that matters. Stone out. The channel closed. Rebecca returned to her command chair, her face composed, but her hands trembling slightly. Okonkwo approached quietly. "Beautiful speech, Admiral. But do we actually have a plan beyond revenge?" Rebecca allowed herself a small, sad smile. "We have the only plan that matters, James. We survive. We've done it for 300 years in impossible conditions. Now we do it where we belong. In human space. In our home systems. And if the Coalition wants to stop us, they'll have to kill every last one of us." "They might," Okonkwo pointed out. "I know," Rebecca said softly. "But at least we'll die free, in the light of our own sun, instead of forgotten in the dark." Across the fleet, 41,000 ships prepared for battle. Weapons that had been maintained with religious devotion hummed to life. Fighters were prepped. Marines checked their equipment. And in the schoolrooms, teachers quietly told the youngest children stories of Earth, of home, of the green world they had never seen, but would soon fight to reclaim. The Ghost Fleet was 18 hours from the Hours threshold gate, and the galaxy was about to learn that some debts can never be forgotten, only repaid in full. The threshold gate hung in space like a monument to arrogance, a massive ring of metal, and energy that controlled access to the inner Coalition systems. Around it, the Coalition Defense Fleet had assembled in the largest military formation in 300 years. 400,000 ships, representing every member species, their hulls gleaming with fresh paint and modern weaponry. Admiral Torvin Blackwater commanded the Coalition forces from his flagship, the Celestial Mandate. He was a decorated Kryn warrior, his forearms covered in medals from a dozen conflicts. But as he watched the human fleet approach on his tactical display, he felt something he had rarely experienced in his long military career: doubt. There? Not slowing down, his sensor operator reported, her voice rising with concern. "Admiral, they're not even attempting evasive formations. They're coming straight at us." Blackwater studied the display. The human fleet moved with mechanical precision, every ship in perfect position, maintaining a formation that seemed almost ceremonial in its exactness. It was beautiful and terrifying at once. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies. Maybe they'll listen this time." The communication officer worked his console, then nodded. Blackwater cleared his throat. "Attention TCDF Fleet. This is Admiral Torvin Blackwater of the Coalition Defense Force. You are approaching restricted space. We do not wish to engage in hostilities. We understand your grievances, and the Coalition Council is prepared to negotiate full reparations for the injustices committed against your people. Please reduce speed and prepare to receive our diplomatic envoy." For 10 long seconds, there was no response. Then the main screen flickered to life, and Blackwater found himself looking at Admiral Rebecca Stone. She was smaller than he expected, almost fragile looking, but her eyes held the weight of centuries. Behind her, he could see her bridge crew, all human, all watching him with expressions that made his skin crawl. They looked at him the way predators look at prey. "Admiral Blackwater," Rebecca said, her voice calm and measured. "Thank you for your offer of negotiation. I have a counterproposal. Withdraw your fleet, grant us unrestricted access to the former human colonial systems, and we will not fire a single shot. You have 1 hour to comply." Blackwater's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Admiral Stone, be reasonable. You're outnumbered 10 to 1. We have superior technology, fresh crews, and the full industrial might of the Coalition behind us. This doesn't have to end in bloodshed." Rebecca's smile was sad and knowing. "You think you understand war, Admiral. You fought skirmishes over resources and border disputes. Clean conflicts with clear objectives. But we've been fighting a different kind of war. A war of survival, of memory, of purpose. We've spent 300 years preparing for this exact moment, while you've spent 300 years forgetting we existed." She leaned forward slightly, her eyes never leaving his. "You see numbers and technology. We see the faces of everyone who died, waiting for rescue that never came. You calculate acceptable losses. We remember every name. You fight for the Coalition. We fight for the 60 million souls you abandoned. Tell me, Admiral, who do you think wants this more?" The channel went dead. Blackwater sat in silence for a moment, then turned to his tactical officer. "What are our projections if they engage?" The officer consulted his computer, his expression growing grim. "Our technology is superior, but their ships are built for long-term combat operations. Self-repairing hulls, redundant systems, crews trained in multi-generational warfare doctrine. Initial projections suggest we'd win, but casualties would be catastrophic. Estimated losses: 60 to 70% of our forces. Millions of lives," Blackwater whispered. Double quotes, "Yes, sir. Millions." Blackwater looked at the countdown timer. 53 minutes until Rebecca's deadline. He opened a secure channel to the Coalition Council. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Thorne listened to Blackwater's report with growing horror. Around him, the council chamber had erupted into arguments again. "We cannot show weakness." Quelix shouted, "If we surrender to these terrorists, every fringe group in the galaxy will think they can threaten us." "They're not terrorists," Henrik Moss said quietly, but his voice cut through the noise. "They're the consequence of our choices. 300 years ago, we decided human lives were expendable. Now those expendable lives are asking for what was always theirs. Their home systems, their dignity, their place in the galaxy. At gunpoint." Quelix shot back. "Because we gave them no other choice." Henrik's composure finally cracked. "I've spent 3 centuries trying to integrate the few million humans who remained in Coalition space. Building trust. Proving we could be good citizens. And now I discover that my government, the government I've served loyally, deliberately abandoned 60 million of my people to die. How do you expect them to trust our negotiations?" Thorne raised his hands for silence. "Dr. Moss, what do you recommend?" Henrik looked at the holographic display, showing the 2 fleets facing each other. "Give them what they want. The 7 systems in the former human colonial zone are barely inhabited now. A few mining outposts, some research stations. Evacuate our people, grant the humans sovereignty, and let them rebuild their civilization. That sets a dangerous precedent, Quellex argued. No, Henrik said firmly. It sets a just precedent. It says the coalition admits its mistakes and makes them right, even centuries later. It says we value life more than pride. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. The vote was called. It was not unanimous, but it was clear. The coalition would withdraw 40-7 minutes after Rebecca's ultimatum. Admiral Blackwater received his orders. He opened the channel to Retribution's dawn again. Admiral Stone, the Coalition Council has agreed to your terms. We are withdrawing our forces and ceding the former human colonial systems to your control. You have your home back. He expected triumph, defiance, perhaps even mockery. Instead, Rebecca's face showed something he didn't expect. Tears. Thank you, Admiral, she said softly. You've given us something we thought we'd lost forever. Hope. The channel closed. The coalition fleet began its withdrawal, ships peeling away from the threshold gate in orderly formations. And the human fleet passed through, unopposed, heading toward systems that had waited 3 centuries for their true owners to return. Inside Retribution's dawn, Rebecca stood before her crew, many of whom were crying openly. She activated the fleet-wide channel one last time. We're going home, she said simply. After 300 years of darkness, cold, and loss, we're finally going home. Our children will see Earth. Our grandchildren will breathe real air under a real sun. We survived the impossible because we never forgot who we were. And now the galaxy will never forget us again. The Ghost Fleet has fulfilled its purpose. Now we become something better. We become a people again. Throughout the fleet and every ship, humans embraced each other. Some had been born in the void and would see a planet for the first time. Others remembered Earth from their childhood before the long sleep. All of them felt the weight of 300 years lifting from their shoulders. The journey home would take weeks, but they had time now. Time to heal. Time to rebuild. Time to teach the next generation that they were not defined by what was done to them, but by how they survived it. As Retribution's dawn led the fleet toward the blue jewel hanging in space ahead. Rebecca allowed herself to feel something she had suppressed for centuries. Not anger, not revenge, but peace. They were home. And they had won not through destruction, but through the sheer power of refusing to be forgotten. That was a victory that would echo through the ages. A reminder to every species in the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology or its numbers, but its memory and its will to endure. The Ghost Fleet had returned, and in returning, had taught the universe a lesson it desperately needed. Some debts must be paid, some wrongs must be righted, and some people will never, ever give up.